Well, there's the dance for the week. Hey, everybody, it's time for us to prep for Sunday school. It is that Sunday School Girl of thatsundayschoolgirl.com, and I am so glad that you're checking out the lesson with me for this Sunday, January the 10th. Now, if you participated in a high school girls choir, you probably know that song. And if you've looked ahead at your lesson, you probably know why I've been singing that song all week long. And if you don't, I'll make it make sense to you in just a bit. I hope that you had an awesome first week of the new year. I know there was a moaning and groaning in the land with so many people who returned to work after the long holiday break. I know that we're still excited about the new year, all that 2016 will bring, and still focused against our plans, which I hope include Sunday school. It's the weekend, so I know that you have something wonderful on the agenda with your family, and you already know this, that I'm going to ask you to include Sunday school somewhere in that weekend planning. I still have a few down days before I return to school, so I've been using the time to regroup, re-energize, recharge, refocus, because I know that I'm headed back in for another round, and I know what's ahead. And so, that's what I've been doing. Listen, if you're new around here, welcome. You have just joined the largest cyber community of Sunday school students on the World Wide Web, and I am so happy that you are here. I pray that you're blessed by the lesson overview. And it's just that. So some jokingly call it Cliff's Notes for Sunday school or the drive-by. Well, it's not intended to give you every detail of the lesson, but I promise you it's just enough to be dangerous when you go into class. So I hope that you'll like it, share it, invite someone else to be a part of this community. These videos are done each week for 3 reasons. Number 1, to encourage you to make Sunday school part of your regular weekend routine. And that's easy to do now, right, in the new year, because we're, making plans in areas that we can be better. So this is an easy one to slide in on your list. When you get there, I want you to make sure that you are prepared. That's why we go through the lesson together, so that you can raise your hand and be a part of the dialogue that's taking place in your class. But lastly, and most importantly, when you leave, you understand how to activate God's word in your everyday lives. Listen, this is not your grandma's Sunday school. It is not grandma's Sunday school anymore. Sunday school is so exciting. Let me tell you about last week very quickly in my class. So I was about 8 minutes late, and boy, was I kicking myself because I could hear those women from the door when I entered in. There was so much excitement about the lesson in our class. I told you this month is really about relationships and marriage. And so it was exciting because so many people were studied and prepared that it was like a fire in that class. So the teacher was so incredibly prepared, and then the students were so excited about the lesson. As a matter of fact, I mentioned this on the Periscope earlier this week. There was one point that my pastor came and was looking through the glass window, and his mouth was just hanging open, like, what is going on in the women's class? That is exactly how Sunday school should be, when everyone is excited about where they are, passionate about it, and takes the time to dedicate to the study of the lesson. It so makes a difference. And so I want to be a part of helping you make sure that you are prepared. So for this week, we are continuing our study on relationships, marriage. We are actually in the book of Song of Solomon. Now, I said last week, and I'll say again, that if you're single, not time to run away. There's something in here for everybody, so we will pick up something in the lesson just the same. I also want to say again that because I am single, never married, that I will be very careful in how I approach the lesson, because although there are a ton of marriage nuggets in here, that's not an area that I feel like I should give thought, wisdom, counsel, or advice, because I've never walked in those shoes. And so I will introduce a couple at the end of this video who will do the second part for me to bring the perspective of a married couple, and I'm really excited to tell you who they are. Our lesson this week is The Most Beautiful Bride. The Bible basis is Song of Solomon, chapter 6, verses 4 through 12. The Bible truth. Song of Solomon describes mutual adoration for inner and outer beauty. Our memory verse is verse 6. And the lesson aim is that we will explore love and adoration as pictured in the Song of Solomon, reflect on romantic relationships and the ways to nurture them, and seek ways to recognize and express appreciation in appropriate ways for inner and physical beauty in others. There is no secret that our society is fixated on beauty, and there is so much that drives this idea of what beauty is. So whether it's celebrities or internet or things that we see in the mall from marketing perspectives, the beauty industry is absolutely capitalizing and making billions of dollars every year. There are doctors and physicians now who make so much money from Botox and plastic surgery. And I don't judge any of it because I certainly leave my share of dollars at the Mac counter. But I posted about this last night, whether it's brows on fleek, beard game, our weekly salon appointments. And ladies, let's not let the men make us feel badly about this, because I've learned that some of them are not in the barber's chair once a week. They're in there twice a week. So we are all concerned about how we look and how we present ourselves. And honestly, I think that that is a good thing. But I think we should all be reminded that we are to celebrate the creation that God made each one of us to be, and celebrating our natural beauty. And you know what? There are days that I simply say, I really did wake up like this. But I'm guilty. I'm as guilty as anyone. If you look at last week's video, I wore a wrap on my head, not because I have a personal conviction about having my head wrapped, but when I did my first take of the video, my edge control wasn't working like I needed it to. So take two, had to wrap, make them lay down. So we are concerned. We're all concerned about it. So we'll see the theme of beauty this week in the lesson. There'll also be nuggets that we can gain on relationships. And then I believe that the imagery speaks to us in terms of how Christ sees his bride, the church. So we're in, it's also called the Song of Songs. It's a book of poetry written by Solomon. Refresh yourself on who Solomon is. He was a king, the son of David. And although Solomon was never a shepherd like his father, he spoke about himself in terms of a shepherd, and he saw himself as leading and taking care of people. He wanted the best for people. He was a hardworking king. He was a wise man, and under his leadership, the temple was rebuilt. And he loved women. Yes, he did. And he had many of them to love. He had 700 wives and 300 concubines and a number of other virgins. But this particular woman, the Shulamite woman that we read about in Song of Solomon, was different than all of the others. She had something that most of the others didn't have, and that was his heart. And he is very expressive in terms of how he feels about her throughout this entire poetic writing. If you have the opportunity, it is worth the read to read through the entire book of Song of Solomon. I've seen posts, and I know that my classmates have already started reading it, so I expect that class is going to be quite interesting again this week. So to jump into this week's lesson, you honestly should go back into chapter 5, where you'll find that this particular young woman, who again does not have a name, we know from reading in chapter 1 that she was a black woman, a dark-skinned woman. That is the reference to the video opening where I had the song Nigra Sum, which is Latin. If you sang it in a women's choral group in high school, you remember that it meant I am black but comely, taken from the first chapter of Song of Solomon. And as you read about her physical characteristics, as Solomon celebrated her in chapter 7, I'm going to put her in the Curvy Girl Club because he talked about her hips. And so there were some things that were very distinct about her. And even though she did not fit a traditional mold of what beauty was, she captured Solomon in every way. So chapter 5, Solomon comes to see her at night. And she said, listen, I've had my bath for the night. Calgon has taken me away. I'm already in bed. Listen, I don't really have time to come down and let you in. And she took her time. And by the time she got herself together, put her robe on and went downstairs, she took a little bit too long getting down there. And Solomon had gone ahead and taken his leave. And so she realized that she had mismanaged a moment. She had played hard to get, a little too hard, and a little too long. And so she goes running into the night streets to search after her beloved, because even though she wanted to play hard to get, she loved him too. And you know what? Relationally, we're guilty of that. We've been in situations where we've seen someone calling or seen someone texting, but in that moment, we're just not going to give our attention. But we have to be careful that you don't mismanage that moment for too long, which is where this woman found herself. So she goes into the night streets looking for Solomon, her beloved. And chapter 6 opens where the maidens, there are other maidens who see her, and they ask, well, where is your man? Where is your guy? Where is he? And there's some debate as to whether they were sincere or whether they perhaps were being sarcastic because this woman had talked so much about Solomon and how great he was. Hey, if he's so great, where is he? But nonetheless, they agreed to go with her to look for him in the night because they wanted her to be safe. She goes, and whether it's discernment or she learns it, she finds that Solomon has gone to his garden, and she goes there, and she is overjoyed to be reunited with him. And quite honestly, he's happy to see her too. And you know that because that's where our printed text picks up, where he immediately begins to talk to her about just how beautiful she is. Now, again, there's been a breach in their relationship, and Solomon would have been well within his rights to say, hey, girl, listen. I came by last night and, you were playing games. You didn't have time for me. So what is this? But he did not do that. He did not throw anything in her face. He did not remind her of anything that had gone wrong. He, in that moment, began to talk to her in very loving, endearing, and affirming terms. And he used the same language, the same words that he used with her on their wedding night as he affirmed his love for her. Regardless of what had happened, there was unconditional and committed love for her. They were separated, but again, they were happy to be together again. And the closeness of their relationship is evident as we open up the lesson. When he's speaking, he talks about her beauty and her stature being like two very noble cities. And he also compares her to an army that's arrayed for battle. Again, there is not a hint of unforgiveness or bitterness on the part of the beloved. Even though there had been a disruption in their relationship that was largely her fault, the offended party was quick to forgive and to restore the relationship. But then Solomon says, hey, stop looking at me. Don't look at me. Because we know from reading in context that her eyes were incredibly beautiful and seductive. He's already noted that several times. So, he knows that they have something that they need to work through. But listen, your eyes, they do it to me and they do it for me. So when you look at me like that, it confused. One translation says, I get confused. So it did something to his mind when she looked at him. And he basically says, I can't take it when you look at me. So don't look at me. And there are times that pretty is not enough to smooth over the issue that's taken place. And so we do have to have a willingness to work through issues so that we don't end up in the same ugly place. He goes on to continue to compliment her physical beauty. He does love everything about her, her lips, hips, and her fingertips. I'm telling you, those hips are in chapter 7. And he just cannot resist the urge to talk about her physical features. He even talks about her hair. Now, I'm not sure that any of us are waiting on the beloved to come and tell us your hair is like a flock of goats. But that was the words that Solomon chose because they were familiar to her as a shepherdess. If you saw the beauty of the flocks that as they would come over the field, that was a beautiful sight to see. So it was a compliment to her hair. He talks about her teeth. Again, she was a dark-skinned woman, and so she had very white teeth. She probably had all of her teeth, which is a beautiful thing. Yes, dental plans are important. Dental plans to hold all 32 or whatever you have left, as my pastor would say. So he complimented her physical beauty. At the same time, whereas we celebrate physical beauty, we cannot overlook how important it is to have an inner beauty that matches your physical beauty. Again, Solomon had many, many wives and concubines, and he didn't pursue them all. Some of them were through political gain, but this one was above all the others, and that was what he let her know. You are more important to me than anything else. You more than anyone else that I have. You are most important. He reminds her that she is the most beloved of her parents and that other women look at her and consider her to be blessed. Verse 11 has a couple of different interpretations. There are some translations that will show it as the maiden who goes and finds Solomon in a nut garden where it's a celebratory time because it's spring and things are budding. And there is another translation that shows Solomon still speaking, where he more or less begins to explain himself and why he left. And, I had things to go and tend to. I had things to do in the garden. So take some time and familiarize yourself with both of those options. What's not debatable in the lesson is that this couple was clearly happy to be back together again. It was an exhilarating time. It was a very freeing time. Here are my lessons of the week, my personal learnings. In relationships, there will be points of disagreement. But if you're going to have relationships, good relationships, strong relationships, and authentic relationships, you're going to have to want to make them work. You must be willing to give yourself wholly to the relationship and give your most honest self to making the relationship work. The second thing is, in reconciliation, it is so easy to focus on who did what and what didn't go right. But when you're truly committed to a relationship, if you want to make it work out, you will. So again, whether that's a friendship or any other type of relationship, if you want to make it work out, you will. You can use the power of your words to focus on and rehearse the great parts about the other person or the other party, or to focus on the relationship itself. Thirdly, it's great to celebrate our inner beauty, but it should always be done in appropriate ways. So whether that's men talking to women or women talking to men, there is still a way that we should approach each other, and we should be very careful and use our words in ways that are uplifting, that are affirming, but certainly not in ways that are offensive. And you have to kind of figure out where that boundary is, and it is appropriate to have those boundaries even in celebrating each other. Lastly, Christ Church is indeed the garden. It's enclosed and it's separated from the world. He takes care of it. He delights in his garden and he visits his garden. And the church is to Christ the most beautiful bride. And no matter what we've done, God, like Solomon, doesn't hold it against us. When we seek after him and when we find him, he receives us immediately and begins to tell us only those things that he said about us. And that is reflecting only the things about us that are beautiful and reflecting to us just how beautiful we've always been to him. I hope to hear from you. Leave us some comments below. We would love to hear what you got out of the lesson. It's time for me to share with my guests for this week, who are Pastor Paul and Lady Kalisha Gatlin from Lafayette, Louisiana. This is my brother and my sister, his wife, and they're going to be a great blessing to you. They are a wonderful young married couple who have 3 children, and God is blessing them and blessing them to work together in ministry. I know that you'll be blessed by them. Again, share this video with someone, and we'll see you in Sunday school. Have a great week.
Hello, and we're grateful just to be able to give a little bit perspective on the lesson, The Most Beautiful Bride. On this week, we were asked to give the life application about the lesson and talk about marriage and how to keep it going and keep the excitement and everything growing for that person that you are married to. One thing, of course, that we do, we make sure that we do have date nights. We take out the time after all the kids are sleeping, after work, and make sure that we still communicate with each other. We have fun, we laugh, and we do things that in order for us to make sure that we continue to look at each other and our own uniqueness and love for each other.
Yes, and this week it is a very great lesson. My little nugget would be, make sure you find someone that will continue to ignite that fire on the inside of you. The Bible says, I think it's 1 Kings 11:3, that it was something about the Shunammite woman that caught Solomon's attention. It's well documented that Solomon had well over 1,000 women who he could have chosen from. But it was something about that individual that caught his attention and made him to think about her. So enjoy this week's lesson, and thank you for allowing us to share.